Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Debunking Myths, Attracting and Retaining Technicians in Heavy Equipment Dealerships. I'm Alina, and I'll be your moderator today. Few housekeeping items while we wait for more people to join. If you have any technical difficulties, please add them to the chat box, and I'll do my best to help you. And for questions, please add them to the Q&A section, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. Next, I have the pleasure of introducing our presenters for today. So we have Emily Spala. She has over 15 years of client relations experience in manufacturing, agriculture, and construction industries. At Satisfied, Emily has created a customer-first environment, leading teams that deliver high-quality solutions that exceed customer expectations. She has worked closely with both enterprise and dealer groups and is passionate about helping them create customer experience excellence strategies and programs. Emily is excited to help businesses provide the very best experience to their customers. She holds a business management and economics degree from Hope College. She's an avid mountain biker and lives in Traverse City, Michigan, with her husband and two daughters. Thanks, Emily, for being here. And we also have John Dowling. He is a United States Marine Corps veteran, and he has a successful 25-year career in the product support industry. He began his career as a construction equipment mechanic and worked his way up to become a field service mechanic. John was then promoted to the position of service manager and eventually to the role of branch manager of a construction equipment dealership. Later, he accepted a position as a field service representative for a major agricultural equipment manufacturer. In his last role before entering the recruiting industry, John was a director of product support at a successful construction ag equipment dealership. Additionally, John is the author of Service by the Boxes, a manual on running a best-in-class service department. This book is available on Amazon. Thank you, Emily and John, for sharing your thoughts today. And with that, I will go over quickly through what we're going to talk today, and then I'll pass it over to John. So we're just gonna have a brief introduction about us, both companies. Then we're going to talk about right into the subject matter of the three myths, which is compensation, perception of the job, and education. And as I mentioned earlier, please add your questions to the Q&A chat section so that we can answer them at the end. Go ahead, Emily.
Thanks, Alina. I appreciate the introduction there. And I have to say, John and I are both really excited to be here with you all today and discussing these three common myths when it comes to attracting and retaining service technicians. So to get started, as Alina mentioned, we'll give a little background about both companies. And so I'll share a little bit about Satisfied for those of you who may not be familiar. We are the leading provider of both employee and customer feedback for heavy equipment dealerships. So for the last 25 years, we have been servicing solely this heavy equipment industry. So we work with agriculture, construction, trucking, etc., dealerships and manufacturers across North America, and collecting feedback, as I mentioned, from both those employees and customers. So for today's session, obviously, we're going to be looking at some data that we have collected over the years from employee feedback, and we have that specifically narrowed down to focusing on service employees so that we can understand better what meets the needs for those technicians when it comes to retaining them, as well as attracting and recruiting new technicians to the space. In addition to the employee feedback portion, we work with dealerships as well to collect customer feedback. So oftentimes that's done through our sort of rigorous automated process for customer surveying. We also have a reviews and reputation management process as well, where we can help dealerships leverage that feedback that's being provided from customers or even employees to promote the dealership publicly through Google, Glassdoor, Indeed, some of those sites to help when it comes to recruiting new customers as well as new employees to the dealership. And for those of you that may not be as familiar with feedback and how it can really improve your business, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about the benefits of leveraging both employee feedback and customer feedback in your organization. It obviously helps you identify issues that you may have with individuals or systemic issues. It really can be used as a tool to help you boost revenue and grow the business. And that may be through the bottom line. There's a lot of results that we have seen shared back with us from dealerships that have seen improvements in their just operating efficiencies, as well as from that attraction standpoint of bringing in new business. But you're able to keep talent as well, and really help you kind of take control of things, whether that be what's being said about you through word of mouth, through customer feedback, or even those public reviews. And so with that, we help dealers kind of keep track of the financial return on their investment when they're collecting both employee and customer feedback. And the results that they have seen has been a direct relationship to their market share. When we look at measuring net promoter score, every 1 point increase in market share for a 6 point increase in their net promoter score. The dealers we work with have also seen significant return on their investment. At minimum, they have had at least a 13 times return. So a lot of benefits can come from collecting feedback from both employees and customers. And then I wanted to share a little bit more with you about specific customer examples. So as we talk about some of the numbers there from a return on investment, there's a lot that can be learned from this community of dealerships that we work with who are invested and focused in on improving the employee experience and customer experience. We are going to share this slide deck with you after today's session. There's links here on the screen under the Learn More that you can click on and learn a little bit more and hear directly from other dealers like yourself and the success that they have had. We have here on the left, Doug Tibbin of Pattison Ag. They are a dealership in Canada who has seen a 60% increase in their market share just since 2020. And so pretty significant results there from that dealership. Adam Berry of Berry Companies. They are quite a large Komatsu Bobcat dealership in the United States and have been really focused on how they can improve both the customer and the employee experience. And there's a great interview there if you click on that to learn a little bit more about how they have driven success throughout their many dealership locations. And then lastly, I have Trish Smith with Belcorp Ag out west, and a little bit smaller, like a 7 location, now 8, I think, dealership with a recent acquisition. And they've had a lot of success in reducing turnover and growing their business and becoming more profitable that way through employee feedback. And so, again, I encourage you to kind of learn from others in our industry. And they've been gracious enough to share their success stories here with us and with you today as well.
Thanks, Emily. So I'm with Jordan Setter Associates. We provide executive searches within the heavy equipment industry, and don't want to get too in depth, but a little bit about our history was started by Joe Jordan, later owned and operated by Bill Sitter, and then Jerry Randecker. So JSA's been around the heavy equipment industry since 1978. We just recruit in the heavy equipment industry. Heavily involved with different trade associations. Jay Lucas purchased the company in 2018 after Jerry's passing, and with him and the team, we brought about 60 years of recruiting experience, but also brought in a leading edge of recruiting technologies and processes. I personally joined JSA in 2022. Bringing 25 years of experience. So still I guess just to say that we're heavily involved in the heavy equipment industry and also heavy equipment industry executives. So one of our key goals, we believe reputation matters. And so we try to drive reputation over profits because we believe that if you have a great reputation, you take care of your clients and take care of your customers, profits will come. And so one of our key objectives is to have 1,000 five-star reviews by 2027. And I think we're about 800 right now. And so this is just a snapshot from our website. I'd encourage you to go there you could read and see what our candidates and clients have to say about us. Also, if you just Google Reputable Recruiting, which is our parent company on Google, we have like over 245 five-star reviews on Google as well. And when I say five-star reviews, like all of our reviews are five-star reviews. So there's no like 4.5. It's 5 stars. So that's our goal, is to give 5-star review quality service to our candidates and our clients. So that's what we do. We help heavy equipment companies find great talent. And we're here to solve problems. So we are recruiters, but we spend a lot of times with our candidates, and especially our clients, to really find like what's the problem and what can we do to help. So anyways, we've been doing it since 78. So if we can help you, let us know.
Let's get to it.
All right. Myth one, you want me to? So I'll just jump in here. You know, everybody struggles with technicians. As I talk with dealerships throughout North America, that's the common problem. Technicians. When I got out of the Marine Corps in 1998, I went to work for a John Deere dealership as a technician. And I remember sitting around and everybody was complaining that there was not enough technicians in our industry. So that's almost 30 years ago. And you know, when I sit with dealers or meet with dealers or go to a conference, you hear the same thing. We don't have enough technicians. And so I wanted to put this, when Emily, we met at an AED conference and just wanted to partner together to help out our industry. This is probably one of the biggest problems that we have. And so, not to say that we've solved the compensation issue for technicians. So I'm not saying like we're paying the technicians correctly or the right amount. But what we've done in the last 30 years is we've just thrown a lot of money at the problem. And I just want to let you know that's not going to solve the problem. For many of you, how much have you increased your compensation to technicians? And yet we still have the same problem of recruiting and also retaining great technicians. And one of the reasons at technicians doesn't work because it's very reactive, and we're not being very proactive. And what I mean by that, I had a conversation with the dealership 2 or 3 months ago. And so this is usually how this has worked as we've increased the compensation for technicians, is you have your technicians, dealer X down the road is in a really bad spot because their technicians retired or whatever, and they're willing to overpay, or I won't say overpay, but they're willing to pay more for your technicians than what you're currently paying them. So they literally offer them $5, $10 more an hour. And they say, can I get a written offer for that? And they get the written offer. They come to you and say, I want to put in my 2 weeks notice. I'm going to go work for dealership X. They're going to pay me another $5 or $10 an hour, or whatever it is. And then at that point, you're like, what do? I don't have enough technicians like it is. I have to pay this. And so for this dealership, not only did they pay another $10 an hour, but they had to put more money on top of it. And so, yes, the compensation has gone up, but it's just a very proactive, not proactive, but a very reactive, that we're just throwing money at it. we're not asking why is the technician even considering this offer? Why would a technician leave us? And I think we need to be able to offer a better compensation package, and it's not just about gross money or gross pay to them. And so I think we need to have more of a competitive package for the technicians. And so personally, when I was a director of product support, I would have technicians, everybody is trying to recruit your technicians. And those dealerships who are willing to pay a lot more money, usually they're not the greatest places to work. They don't have the greatest culture, or they don't value their technicians. And so for me, I'd be a little frustrated of like, why on earth would you want to go to work for that dealership? And so I would sit with the technician and discuss their offer. And then I say, well, what about their benefits? What's the cost for insurance? And so one way that we can be competitive without just paying more money is offering them a more competitive benefits package, like reducing the premiums. Because if you just pay them more money, and so this happens a lot, a technician would leave for $2 or $5, but the benefits package at the other dealership, their premiums cost a lot more, and they'll end up. And I've talked to the technicians about this, and other employees, be frank with you, that they're making less money, like their take home pay is less. So by offering a better compensation package, which increases their take home pay, is a great way to secure or retain that technician. No, technicians don't like to leave. There's this false idea that technicians will jump for a dollar, and they're jumping for others' reasons, and they're just saying it's compensation. But providing great insurance coverage for them and their family is a great way. Some more things that you can do for compensation wise. So we talked about competitive packages. Another thing is a tool reimbursement program, and I'm really amazed how many dealerships do not offer a tool reimbursement program for their technicians. And so one of the issues that we have in our industry is that technicians are not mobile. And when I say technicians aren't mobile, is your average technician, generally speaking, will not relocate to like a different city or a different state for a job. And so the workforce that is available in your community, in your city, that's what you have. And so when we throw money at the problem, basically we're just overpaying, or not overpaying. I don't want to use that word because I don't think we're probably paying them enough, but you're just stealing somebody else's technicians. And then they come out after you and they steal your technicians. And eventually what happens is a dealership just swaps technicians. The dealerships that work for technician A now work for B, and the ones for B work now for A. And basically your payroll just went up. And so I've experienced that as a technician, that swap. And so we don't need to necessarily look at constantly stealing somebody else's technicians, but we need to recruit in people into this industry. And so one way that we can recruit into this industry is get new people into this industry is a tool reimbursement program. So this is really great for new technicians, because say you pay a new technician out of high school or college $20 an hour, that's roughly 40 grand a year. Well, if they have to spend $10,000 on tools, their effective take-home pay is only $30,000, and they could get a job at McDonald's or at a gas station to make $30,000. So reimbursing them their tools is a great way. I can tell you, my wife, when I got married, I was a technician, and she just could not understand why the dealership wouldn't buy my tools. And it put me in a bad spot between being investing in my career and buying the tools I needed to be efficient, i.e. make the dealership more money, and satisfying my wife, because I knew if I bought this tool, I'd have to go home and explain to my wife why I spent $200 or $300, and I'd have to hear the same thing over again. Well, why aren't they paying for your tools? You need to go to the store manager. And so it creates stress in that work, in that home life. And I know we've got a lot of HR managers on here and people have been experienced. And usually when you have a employee underperforming at work or their performance drops off, 9 times out of 10, it's a home life problem. And, when you spend time with them, you realize, oh, that's what it is. And so by doing that tool reimbursement program, I mean, it goes back to the old saying, happy wife, happy life. And so if you have a happy wife, you have a happy technician, which means he or she is more productive. Um, Another way on developing a good compensation package is have an incentive program, but most incentive programs fail because they're not realistic and they're not attainable. I think the incentive programs are win-win. So if the dealership makes more money, then the technician should make more money, and it should be a symbolic relationship between the two. But it has to be realistic. If your shop, I like incentive programs based off of recovery rate. So we all know recovery should be around 85%. Well, if your recovery rate's only 50%, don't set your incentive program at 85% for them to get paid out. Put it at 55% or 60%. So it is attainable and it's realistic, because if nobody hits the incentive program, you won't have any momentum. And you've got to educate not only the technicians, but your store managers and service managers. You have to get their buy-in to push that program. If not, it's not going anywhere. So those are, compensation, putting money in the technician's pocket. But I think the largest thing that we overlook is non-monetary compensation. So as being a recruiter, talking to employees all the time, non-monetary is really where job satisfaction comes. And it's a lot more important than what most of us realize. And so job satisfaction, compensation is probably about 40 to 60%. And so non-monetary compensation is really important for technicians. Technicians aren't salespeople. And so when I don't say that in a negative way, I just say like salespeople are money driven, like they want to make a lot of money. And so for them, it's about 75%. How much money can I make? For technicians, they want to be valued. They want to be heard. They want to be a part of the team, and they just want to make a good living to take care of their families. So there's some things that you can do to develop a very competitive benefit package without, just throwing a bunch of money at them, i.e. just, offer them $10 more an hour to come work for you, is to offer a very generous PTO policy. It is, I'll say this, when it comes to paid time off, is that I've got two girls in high school. One's a freshman, one's a junior. And I think about how much money would I pay to have another week's vacation with my girls. I mean, Abby is 17. She just got her driver's license. I mean, she's starting to like realize her freedom, and she's like gone with her friends. I mean, what would I pay to have another week with her? And when you think of it like that, if you could give your technicians another week to spend time with their family, throughout their whole life, that is worth money. And when I talk to potential candidates, I ask them like, what's important? And I talk about their family, we talk about the background, and honest, truthfully, most candidates would give up money. I'm talking about like $5,000 to $10,000 of compensation for another week's vacation to spend time with their family, to have that freedom. And the newer generations so we're trying to recruit technicians, we're trying to get people to enter into this career field. They like free time. They like flexibility. So offering them a generous PTO policy, or even flex hours. And so you're thinking, how on earth do we do flex working hours for technicians? If you have a smaller shop, this may not be as practical for you. But going to a 4-day work week where you work 10 hours a day, it just makes sense. Like, who wouldn't want an extra day of out of the week? And so those are ways that you can give them more freedom, more flexibility with their time. And this is probably the most important one when it comes to non-monetary compensation. I was talking with a technician coach. So this is a guy who meets with technicians for career development and stuff. And we were just discussing this issue, and he made the point that he knows technicians that would probably give up $5 an hour to work in a better facility. And so if your facility looks terrible, it's dark and dirty and nasty, and you don't have an overhead crane, like, you're going to have to overpay for technicians to work in a dungeon. And so having a well-maintained facility or a newer facility that makes the technician's job easier, you will attract and retain a better working force for you, and you don't have to pay as much because people are going to want to work for you. And there's a study I read years ago that said the cleaner a work environment is, and the more or better lit it was, that your employees not only were more efficient, but would make better or more ethical decisions. And so I would just challenge you, if you're struggling to recruit and retain technicians, just go look at your shop and say, would I want to work there? Is it clean? Is it well lit? And when I say clean, a technician should never push a broom. Should never push a broom. You need to hire people to push a broom and take the trash for the technicians. Because the technician, if you're charging $150 an hour, would you literally pay somebody $150 an hour to push a broom? And that's what we got to have. That's what you got to think about with technicians. They make you money when they're turning wrenches. Career progression. This is everybody I talk to. This is a big one. Like, what's my career progression? Can I move up in the company? And there's this false narrative that says if you become a technician, you will always be a technician, and you will not be you can't get out of that. Like, you get the stigma on you, and you can't get promoted. And so if you don't have like a documented process or career progression for technicians, I would develop one and be able to articulate that when you're trying to recruit in new technicians into your company.
John, I couldn't agree with you more. It's interesting, all of the points that he just hit on when we talk about, compensation as a myth, are all things that we hear when we're asking dealership employees, and we look specifically at the service department. We see feedback often on those exact areas that he mentioned. And I pulled up just some scores over the last couple of years, looking kind of post-COVID. Obviously, scores were down quite a bit in 2020, but coming out of that, we've seen a bit of an increase. And I didn't include 2024 numbers in here yet, just because we're not yet complete with the year, but things seem to be on the upswing, even in 2024, about 6 months through the year so far. But kind of looking at compensation and benefits, as John mentioned, that's not the only thing. And we can look here, even last year in 2023, it took a bit of a dip when we look specifically at the service department. So when they're rating, is the pay fair for the work that they're doing in the eyes of the employees? And same thing on the benefit side, it held pretty close, but did come down just a little bit, compared to the year prior in 2022. And those things are really important to them, making sure that we're have a good competitive compensation plan. And that's something I hear from dealerships a lot, that they're, doing market studies to understand where their compensation is relative to others within our industry for heavy equipment dealers. But the other thing too is, beyond that compensation, is looking at the benefits package as well, because that's equally important. But then from a non-monetary standpoint, as John mentioned, they really do value having a good, clean place to work and good work-life balance, that we have seen continue to go up. And even in 2024, it looks like it's going up more than that. And so those things are, I think our dealers are listening. They have heard the dealer, the service techs talk about this in the comments that keep coming back through the employee surveys, how important this is to them. And I have heard from a lot of dealerships that we work with that have tried implementing some flexible scheduling. As you mentioned, it can be a little bit harder in smaller locations, but I think where possible, people are trying to better meet those needs and create more flexibility for the techs, which is really, really important to them. And the facility one, especially that one, there's a dealership that we work with who saw that in the comments continually from their techs and ended up, doing some major overhauls to their shop. And it was amazing to see the scores go up in the service department and see how much those have improved. So the results are real with what John's talking about, and you can see that through the data as well. Just to give everyone kind of some highlights as to where things are at. Maybe some of you have sat in on our annual summit that we hold virtually every year, maybe looked at our benchmark report, which I'll have a QR code for you guys to download later. But last year in 2024 for heavy equipment dealerships, the employee or eNPS score, as we call it, was a 16. And that's across, all various roles within the dealership. But for technicians, specifically, when we talk about the service department, they were at a 0 last year. This year, we're seeing that so far, like I said, the year's not complete yet, but we've seen that come up quite a bit. And so over the last 4 years, we've seen a 21-point increase in the service department's employee net promoter score, which is fantastic. So I think you guys are all listening. This has been a pain point for dealerships for years, as John mentioned, right? 30 years, and that's not changing. I think it's not anything that we're going to be able to let go of or take our eyes off the ball per se when it comes to this. Their needs are changing. I think, especially as we look at the different generations, which is something we analyze as well here at Satisfied. Looking at engagement scores across those different generations, it's significantly different. And as we have more people entering the workforce in these younger generations, their needs and demands are significantly different. So we need to continue to provide that listening tool, provide a voice to these employees so that we can better understand what their needs are and do a better job of, meeting those when it comes to retaining as well as attracting and recruiting new technicians into our workforce.
Yeah, so our myth 2 is the perception of the job. And I'll say this is not only an industry issue for like within the heavy equipment industry. This is a cultural issue that we as a country, as a nation, the United States of America, needs to address and realize that we cannot devalue the trades. And that's really what this is. And my first point is that the higher education has done a great job of marketing their product, which is a 4-year degree. And so they're doing a great job. You want to be successful, you want to have a great career, you want to make a lot of money, you want to have job security, then buy my product, which is a 4-year degree from a university. And I'm all for education. So I hope this doesn't come across like I'm anti-education. I mean, you can see my books. I've got another thing behind me full of books. I've got a bookshelf in the house. I love education. But education doesn't bring along job security. So this is the issue that we have, is that higher education as an industry has done a great job to market and promote their product, but they did it by demonizing the trades. So basically, for the last 50 years, we all went to high school. You went to talk to your counselor, and they have the poster about you need to go get a degree. And then they'll say, well, if you don't go to college, then basically you're going to be a failure, and you're going to have to work with your hands and get hot and sweaty, and nobody nobody wants to be a plumber or electrician or or heavy equipment technician. And so really that's what we are up against, and we have to combat that false narrative that somehow technicians is not an honorable career field to pick. And I will have to say this, that it is an outright lie that you have to have a college degree to make money. There's plenty of studies that show people who go enter into the trades have a higher lifetime learning than like your average college grad. And one reason is you go to work sooner and you don't have to go in debt 60 to $100,000. And so we need to combat that. One way that, this is a cultural issue, so it's bigger than what we are, but we can only control what's in our sphere of influence. And so what we can do at the dealership level is we need to be a product support centric dealership. And you probably want to know, like, what is a product support centric dealership? And I'll say this, the way to kind of come to it, Walt McDonald just wrote one of his latest books. I think he wrote like 11 books in the industry. The guy's like amazing. He sent me his book, wanted me to write a review on it, on key account management. And he had a phrase in there that I think I'll give him credit this time, but I think I'm just going to steal it from myself. That he says you have to weaponize your product support team. And so what he was talking about in his book, and what I'm talking about today, is your product support team, which is parts and service, has to be the central strategic plan, marketing plan to drive your business. And kind of just a side note here, any top tier manufacturer, the top five, you name whatever one you want to name, is their quality and performance between any of those, there's not enough difference that a customer is going to say, I'm buying this color or this brand because it's so much better than that. Like between Ford and Chevrolet, there's not enough difference between a Ford truck and a Chevrolet truck. And they come out with a new model every other year. So if one has a better performance than the other one, just wait, give the manufacturer 6 months, and they'll have more horsepower, more torque. And so my point is that you're not going to be able to drive your business and moving forward in the future because you're an ex-dealer. Like, you can't rely on that. What customers care about, and so this is 25 years plus experience here, customers know equipment breaks. Customers know that the warranty is going to go out at some point. The customers want to know, are you going to be there to help me when my equipment goes down? Do you have the parts in stock to fix my equipment? Do you have a loaner for me? Oh, do you have the technicians to repair it? And so when we want to combat this, instead of being a very sales focus and honoring and promoting the sales position, is we have to realize that the key to product support is that technician. And so that's basically valuing that technician. And we shouldn't, I guess a way to say this is, we need to change our perspective of that. And I know a lot of y'all have throughout the years, we have made progress on this, but we have to realize that parts and service is not a necessary evil. Parts and service is not a cost center. They are profit centers. We've heard about absorption for the last 50 years now. And the reason we hammer absorption, that's your profitability. That's cash flow, that's profitability, that's parts and service. And you know what's the pendulum on that whole thing is the technician. And so we have to realize technicians are revenue producing employees, and we need to go after them aggressively, market them, and promote the jobs. And one way we can do this is to develop and implement award ceremonies. I've been in this industry for a long time, and I've been to sales banquets, I've been to sales celebrations, I've seen This is really funny. I've seen salesmen not selling the aged unit. And if you're a sales manager or VP or owner, you know what I'm talking about. They sell the new machine and not the machine that's been there for 6 months. And then you have this aged inventory issue. And so what do we do as a dealership? The salesmen aren't doing their job. So, let's come up with a competition to give them a free hunting trip or a free cruise to entice the salesmen to do their jobs. But we have nothing like that, like a technician. If we as technicians don't do our jobs, we're getting chewed out and told how sorry we are. And we just cost the company a lot of money and we lost this deal. And so we need to flip that on its head. And we need to say, we need to highlight the technicians and let's come up with great incentives for them. A hunting trip, a cruise, talking about a great work-life balance, especially at the home, is when the technician gets to go home and say, hey, I just won a cruise for you and I, for free. And so these are ways I think you can highlight them, promote that career. And lastly, I would ask if you may think that you are a product support centric dealership, when you go visit your locations, what door do you go through? Do you go through the front door, straight to the sales office, straight to the store manager's office, or do you go straight to the conference room and start checking your email? Do you ever go to the parts and service? Do you ever even visit in any of those locations? They see you come in and they realize they never come talk to me. Middle and senior management never gives me the time of day. And just a little bit about a personal story about myself is I remember I was at a dealership. We got a brand new CEO. Of course, we got all the emails from everybody, make sure the shop's clean. And I never liked my technicians cleaning. I wanted them turning wrenches. So I remember I stayed late and I cleaned the shop. And if we're all in the business. So you have the oil drain pan where you jump all the waste oil. It always gets messy. There's dry sweep everywhere. And I remember staying late all week long, cleaning all that mess up. And then I saw the CEO drive in and I waited through lunch. Lunchtime came and I waited in my office for the CEO to come tour our shop and, talk to us. And he never showed up. And I remember I was out in the shop and we had like a second floor that overlooked the shop. And there was another stairway up front in our dealership. And I looked up there and there he was standing, just kind of looked and he saw me that I saw him and he just left. Never talked to us. And you know how demotivating that is? That they can't even give you the time of day. And so, the question when I say use, what door do you use? Do you spend any time with your product support people? Do you spend time with your technicians? And so this is a cultural shift. And so this is something we can't fake. And so I just ask you this: if your son or daughter wanted to be a technician, would you be proud of them? Or do you convince them to go in a different career field? And that's what I mean, that we've got to combat this and change this perception that, hey, this is a good career field to get into. Emily?
Yes. Okay. So we're going to look a little bit at the data to kind of tie back to what all of these great suggestions that John has for you from his firsthand experience and then through recruiting as well. And so I think from a perception standpoint, it's interesting. We asked these techs, did the job actually exceed their initial expectations? And they're rating these things on a scale of 0 to 10. And so, on average, that's been pretty consistent. So I think you guys are doing a fairly good job of explaining to them what things are going to be like, through the recruitment process and in reality, what happens there. But I think to tie back to some of the stuff that John was talking about is, are these techs feeling appreciated? And that has slowly been increasing. I think that's really important that, as you mentioned, what door are they going through? Are people paying attention to them and making them feel involved in the company? And that's a huge part of the culture within the organization, which we'll talk a little bit more about too. And feeling part of something meaningful. That's a question as well that we ask to these techs to understand, do they really understand where they're contributing to the organization, and how do they feel about that? What's that message that's being conveyed? When we're talking about leadership being able to connect to the people within the dealership themselves. The other thing too that I have seen, which is interesting from a perception standpoint, and John asked a question about, would your son or daughter feel, would you be proud of them working there? Is we've started evaluating engagement scores by gender over the last couple years, and it's been really interesting to take a look at those. I shared that recently at AED's HR symposium that they had earlier this year, and I don't have anything here, but it just made me think about it. Was, the females tend to be highly more engaged in these heavy equipment dealerships, but they make up such a small portion of the workforce that we have. And so I think, that's something from a recruiting standpoint, is what can we do more to attract those people? And we've got this opportunity too with this younger generation, Gen A, or the alpha generation that's coming up, as being deemed as the tool belt generation. And you've probably seen a lot of articles, everyone here today, and the news has been talking about it. And I think it's an opportunity for our industry to capitalize on this incoming, generation that's considering, maybe bypassing that common standard 4-year degree, like John talked about. So there's, I think, a lot more coming our way, and hopefully you guys are paying attention to that and making the most out of those opportunities.
Emily, I just want to make a quick comment, but it's good to see the scores trending upwards, because I think we are making progress, and I think one of the worst ways you can, or underappreciate a technician, is, if there's ever any manual task to be done at a dealership, if a light bulb's out, if the toilet's overflowing, if you need tables set up for a party, in the past, everybody's like, well, let's go to the service department, grab a bunch of technicians to set up tables, and while everyone else is standing around. That's like, just screams to the technicians that you're just our little labor group, like you're lesser than we are because you're dirty. And like, we got to flip that on his head. I mean, those guys and gals are making 100 for the company, for the dealership, anywhere from $150 to $200 an hour. Like, why would you ever pull them off of a tractor? And I like to tell dealerships, go to the hospital. Do you see a surgeon cleaning an operating room? And that's what these technicians are. They are the surgeons. We need to have them operating on this equipment and get other people to handle the other tasks.
Yep.
All right. So education, I'll try to go. We're running out of time, and I want to make sure we have time for questions at the end. But like I stated before, the biggest education issue we have is our culture, and our society is really what we have to address. And we have to stop saying it's not my responsibility, or there's nothing that I can do about it, because there are things that we can do as a dealership, no matter what your size is. And honestly, it's just getting involved. It's getting involved. And so I've got a list here that we, get involved in the FFA chapters, 4-H. If your local high school doesn't have a CTE program, you need to go to the school boards and demand a CTE program, and make sure that it is funded. Tech colleges, if you're not on an advisory board at a tech college, I don't know why. Like, these are the colleges who are training your future technicians. They hunger or want, like, in industry leaders on their advisory boards, to tell them what skills that they need taught. So if you're not volunteering or sponsoring FFA, 4-H, CTE programs, tech schools, community colleges, then that's part of the problem. We have got to support these programs. And also, I mean, get with your school board, go to the school board meetings, and ensure that they're hearing from you that you need technicians. I mean, that's our tax dollars. So we all pay taxes. So the school system, to educate our population, and we need to ensure that they are putting value on our need for the skills. You know, electricians, plumbers, HVAC mechanics. Remember, technicians aren't mobile. And so whatever workforce that you have in your city, in your community, that's what you have. And so you want to partner with that school board to ensure that they are promoting the technician career, that they're having, you know, the tech college come in for job fairs. And I would say you need to be at every job fair in your community. You need to be speaking at the high school. I was talking with an HR professional the other day, and she made the point that a lot of kids have made their mind up by seventh grade, or at least have an idea by the seventh grade what they want to do as a career. And so not only should you be involved in the high school, you need to be involved in the junior high, because that's 5 years from now. How many technicians will you need in 5 years? Okay, that's the eighth grader right now, the seventh grader. And we need to take a lesson from the military and also from higher education. I remember the first recruiter I was ever exposed to was in the seventh grade. They were Army, and I had already decided to join the Marine Corps, so I was very disrespectful to him. Probably shouldn't had, but that's the mindset we have to have. We have to get it aggressive. Colleges are going after the kids, the military are going after the kids, and we're sitting in our dealership complaining we don't have any technicians. We need to get involved in the schools. We need to let them know you can make great money, have a great career, and you don't have to move, and you don't have to spend $100,000 to do it. What else do we have here? Engage our community. I think that's it. I think that's a good place to stop, Emily.
Yeah, perfect. I was just going to add in there, I think some of the things that are helping them from an education and training perspective. I know there's a lot of training available for technicians. You know, as we try to monitor that, though, I think it has been improving, you know, making sure they're having the right training for them, and also having leaders or supervisors to help them grow. Because I think the other part of this education is that initial piece, but as you mentioned earlier on, is the continued education component. And I think that is really important for them. A lot of the dealerships are starting to talk about, if they're not already doing it, but having leadership development programs like you talked about earlier on. And that is something that we have seen some great results, because not every technician is meant to be the next manager of the service department either. But you know, if we can find those right people and foster that through leadership development programs, I think those are great opportunities for potential growth, you know, further beyond that.
And just
Alina,
to make a quick,
oh, go ahead, John.
I'm sorry. Just to make a quick point is that, you know, to have a product support centric dealership, you need to be promoting out of your product support team. Your parts and service department have great future managers there that understand logistics, that understand a P&L, understand a budget. And we need to be promoting those up. And you can see the dealerships that value product support, that value the technicians, their middle management and senior management came from parts and service. And look at the dealerships that are sales focused and drive everything off of revenue. All of their leadership is from the sales department. Not saying salespeople can't make great leaders or great. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying parts and service managers, that's what we have to drive. So that's where we need to promote out of.
Yep. So I think the other thing was on the next slide, just quickly, I thought this is interesting. One of the things is when we are asking employees and measuring their engagement at the dealerships, and this is specific here to service, as well as, you know, over time. So based on their tenure at the dealership, their engagement scores start off really high in the very beginning, like that first year, right? Sort of the honeymoon phase, obviously, but it really takes a big dip after the first year. You can see those numbers drop. And this is looking at the last like 4 years combined here. It will start to come back up a little bit as we get into those really tenured employees where they're beyond 10 years, but probably the most of the people we have are in that middle section of 1 to 10 years. And they're like our lowest engaged group. And so that is an area where, you know, you need to focus in on. meeting their needs, and listening to that group. They're a huge component of the workforce, and their engagement tends to drop off pretty significantly after that first year, and it takes a while before it comes back up again. So I know we're close on time. We've only got about 5 minutes left. So quick next steps Alina's got here for us. I had mentioned earlier on, we collected a lot of data. We work with nearly 2,000 rooftops across North America. If anyone is interested in learning what's going on in our industry and looking at some key benchmark data, if you can grab your phones, you can scan the QR code here on your left, and that would give you a copy of that benchmark report. I think there's some great insights in there. If anyone has further questions beyond what we'll get to today in our session, the QR code on the right is a link to my calendar. So if anyone wants to meet with me, if you've got questions or want to learn more, feel free to do that as well.
Yeah, so as stated before, we have a very sophisticated technology stack, and so we're the exclusive recruiting firm for Hitachi America. So we've staffed probably well over 100 people with so when Hitachi and John Deere split, like we staffed their North America operation. So this is a case study if you want to see what we do and how we leverage technology to accomplish that. Feel free to scan the QR code for a free case study. And then also, if you'd like to book a meeting with me to learn about my book, Service by the Boxes, or just want to talk about technician recruitment or just dealership issues in general, feel free to scan the QR code and book a meeting as well.
Thank you very much, Emily and John. This was fantastic. I'm sure that the attendees also appreciate all your time and insights into the topic. I do have few questions that came in, and I know that we have 3 minutes, but if anybody wants to ask a last minute question, go ahead and put it in the Q&A section. This question goes for John. So you mentioned that the comment about which door do you use to enter your dealership, but can you share some other actions or tips how management can show how they value their technicians?
Yeah. So I was talking with the VP of a large dealership a couple of weeks ago, and I'll steal his idea what he does. So he goes to visit all the different locations, and he'll schedule his store visits at the same time that they're having a technician safety meeting or training meeting, and he will attend that safety meeting with those technicians, like sit down with them and like amongst them. And that way he has a good feel of what's going on. Like he gets to spend time with them. He eats donuts with them. And I think as we're all busy, I was an executive at a fast growing dealership. I get it. Like you don't have much time at all. I mean, you're working 10, 12 hours a day. I understand, but that's a good way to be efficient with your time, to make your store visit and then sit there and just spending time with the technicians, get to know them, listen to them. So I think that's probably the best. It's time. You want to value somebody, spend time with them.
Great, thank you, John. And this question goes for Emily. Based on the benchmark report, what specific areas of improvement or optimization do you anticipate dealerships could prioritize based on the current market trends?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, one of the things that we talked about in that benchmark report was talking about prioritizing retention and culture. I think the culture of the dealership is key. And it's changing fast, right? A lot of these dealerships are going through mergers and acquisitions, and it's challenging to bring maybe two cultures together, or maybe ownership has changed within that organization. And so I think that's such a fundamental piece of the entire organization and the experience that will be provided to those employees and the customers, is to focus in on that and make sure that that's reflective of, their mission and vision as well. I think the other two things that we've highly recommended and we're seeing is kind of the compensation analysis. So making sure they're staying competitive in the marketplace, and that includes benefits. So not just pay and bonus, et cetera, but looking at those non-monetary components as well. And then investing in leadership development is really important right now. So making sure those people know that they have a future within the organization, what that looks like, and picking out those future leaders and providing them with the training and education needed for them to grow.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And that's it. Thank you to Emily and John, and thank you for everybody who attended. We hope you found this webinar very insightful for you. In the next few days, you will receive the recording in your inbox as well with this presentation, so that you have all the links for that Emily and John share. And also, you will see a quick survey with 2 questions once you leave the webinar, so please fill that out. And that's it. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.